Good morning. My name is Mandy DeRohan, and I am the program manager at the California Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom. We are so happy to have you join us today and give up part of your Saturday to learn about ag. One of our goals for this webinar is to provide you with hands-on activities to help make agriculture come alive for your classroom. Throughout the day, you'll hear from dynamic speakers that will show you how you can take agriculturally themed lessons and tie those to California academic standards. It's truly a win-win for our students. We have a virtual field trip lined up of a farming operation in Northern California, and following the field trip, you'll be able to interact and ask questions live with our farmer. But before we start, I wanted to take just 1 second to talk about why it's important to include agriculture into your curriculum. Well, less than 2% of our population is directly involved in production agriculture. Those are the people that grow the food that we buy at the grocery store and eat every day. Because of advancements in technology, we are all able to have a variety of different jobs. I'm able to be here Zooming with you all today. We have software engineers who make Zoom possible. We have pilots who fly airplanes across the United States. The job opportunities are endless. But with that, we've become further and further removed from the processes on how we get the food and fiber that we depend on every single day. We hope that the lessons and activities today provide some inspiration to help connect the dots for your students on just how big of a role that agriculture plays in our daily lives. Most importantly, we want today to be fun. This format's a little bit different than our virtual conferences that we've done in the past. It's much more hands-on and hopefully both interactive and engaging. If you've ever attended one of our in-person conferences, one of our favorite attendee favorite sessions is the make and take sessions. It's driven by hands-on activities. So we have 1 hour and we have all of these tables set up in a room, and attendees bounce from table to table every 15 minutes, making a different hands-on activity. That was truly our inspiration for this conference, or this webinar, was to bring those hands-on activities to you. So with that, you should have received a packet of resources or a list of digital resources that you can download online when you registered. That packet looks something like this, with a cute little sticker that says, "Are you ready to learn about ag?" So I wanted to take just 1 minute to go through this packet and see what's included. So the first thing that I want to talk about is our ag bites. So these are 1-page standard align activities for kindergarten through 8th grade that focus on everything from desktop gardens to asparagus sizes to tracking nutrition. Every subject is covered in these ag bites. And these are a little bit different than some of our other curriculum units. A lot of our curriculum units have 4 or 6 lessons that all tie together. These are kind of 45-minute activities that really just are hands-on and make agriculture truly come alive. So we'll be using a lot of these today. And Carla, we're so excited to have you here this morning also. Thanks for chatting. So we'll be using a lot of these today and referring to them throughout. So we'll make sure to mention it and just have them close so you can follow along. The second thing that I want to talk about is our From STEM to Plate Careers in Food Science lesson plan. So this is a 4-lesson unit that is aligned for grades 6 through 8 that has students investigate how our food gets from place to place and all the different aspects of food science and how our food is packaged so that it arrives safely. So it kind of makes me wonder what all of those packing materials that we'll get to next are in our packet. Acrostic poems, we'll talk a little bit more about those later, but poetry fits in almost every grade level. So we'll have some time in just a couple hours to write our own poems about one of my favorite subjects, food. And then there is kind of a plethora of plastic bags. Well, these are all labeled with different materials that you'll need for the hands-on activities so that we can all do the activities together and share what we're doing. So there's stuff for a port ag bite. We have our packing materials for our STEM lesson plan. Then we have a bag with some random little tiny products. I'm sure that Jennifer's going to share a little bit more about those later, but it goes with link guns. And then I think we're even going to do a taste test. So I hope you're hungry around lunchtime. As I kind of said, we really want today to be interactive and engaging. So as some of you are doing, please use the chat function and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. But before we introduce our first speaker, I wanted to give just a quick description of Ag in the Classroom for those of you who may be new. Our goal is to educate students and teachers about agriculture and where their food and fiber comes from. We ultimately hope for an appreciation of agriculture by all. We do this by making it as fun and possible and creating resources that are written and tested by teachers. Everything we do here is we have teachers who either write or feel or test our resources, and then they're also reviewed by agricultural industry professionals to make sure that they're factual and accurate. Also, all of our resources are free. We literally have hundreds of resources online that are free to teachers to use and are aligned to all of the California academic standards. Agriculture can be brought into any subject under the sun, from English, math, science, social studies, nutrition. All of the subject areas have their roots tied into agriculture. I'd also like to take a quick minute just on how this webinar is going to operate and where we'll be going throughout the morning. Obviously, you guys all received the Zoom link because you joined and you're here. So thank you for spending Saturday with us, but you can come and go using that same link. All of the sessions are going to be recorded and they will be posted onto our website in just a couple weeks following this. Any questions, comments, concern can all be utilized either the Q&A function or the chat. We have people on site that'll be monitoring that throughout the day. And then at the end of the webinar, which is my favorite part, we'll be offering door prizes. And I can promise you that they're good. So you'll want to stick around to make sure that you listen for your name. We want to give a big shout out to the California Department of Food and Agriculture for funding this webinar through a Cal Ag Plate grant. We very much appreciate their dedication to agricultural education and are so thankful to be offering programs like this to all of you teachers for free. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. Denise Stewardson is the director of the Utah Ag in the Classroom program and the Extension Associate Professor at Utah State University. Denise has served on the executive committee for the National Ag in the Classroom organization and is a great agricultural literacy resource for all of us. During her presentation, Denise is going to share a little bit about how we all rely on agriculture and then how both social studies and careers can be tied into your classroom curriculum. Kind of a fun fact that I learned when I was doing my research was that Denise actually has a bachelor's degree in technology education. And I'm sure that that has been quite useful the last couple of years. So I can't wait for Denise's presentation. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you so much, Mindy. Good morning, everybody. I tell you, I'm just so impressed that those of you who live in sunny, warm California are spending your Saturday morning here with all of us on this Super Saturday webinar. I'm coming to you this morning from Logan, Utah. We're about 90 miles north of Salt Lake City at Utah State University. We're the land grant institution here in the state. And it's just my pleasure and privilege to be here with you this morning to spend some time talking about agricultural literacy. Mindy is correct that I am the director of the Utah Agriculture in the Classroom program. Oh, someone used to live in Payson. That's awesome. I'm heading kind of that direction down towards Salt Lake this morning for a birthday party for my son-in-law. But anyway, thank you all for being here. Again, this is the land grant institution here. Utah Agriculture in the Classroom is part of the National Agriculture in the Classroom program. I want to just kind of give you a little context here. Just as California Agriculture in the Classroom is also part of the National Agriculture in the Classroom program. That's important to know because I'll talk about resources today from the National AITC program and how you can access those. So Judy Culbertson, who's the director, and her team, including Mindy, and then programs like my own in Utah, we're all part of this umbrella under National Agriculture in the Classroom. And so we are very fortunate to be able to use resources, to pool resources together, to give you just an incredible number of materials, activities, lesson plans, companion resources to use to implement in your class. So I do want to say that teaching virtually is not my favorite thing to do. I love to see faces. I teach a food literacy course at Utah State University as part of my role here as director of Ag in the Classroom. And it's just a great time to see students and hear from students. So you this morning as attendees, the way that we're going to interact, I want you to make sure that you use the chat There is a chat feature here. And so if you, yeah, not my favorite doing this virtual, but I'm glad to be here. So if you have questions or just some experiences to share, please use the chat. Mindy's going to help me monitor that. I do have it on, but as I get talking and on a roll, sometimes I forget that it's there. And so if you want to know anything, questions, concerns, just whatever it might be, we're going to try to emulate a classroom kind of situation, but know that I'm listening to you. I can see you here, the comments are coming through. And again, Mindy will help me with that. So please do not be afraid to jump in and ask questions. We're going to talk about some hot topics in a few minutes. And so if you've got some burning questions, let me know. I don't have all the answers, but I have lots of resources and lots of friends, so we can probably get answers for you. So let me share my screen here just to make sure that we can see everything here. I'm going to switch over here for a second and show you, let's see, let me get situated here. Move this over a little bit. Okay, what that means, I have lost my chat. Let's see if I can find that again here. Okay, let me get settled here. Mindy, if you see anything, burning questions, let me start at the beginning here. Just jump in and I will reset. So I'm going to show you my screen here. All right, let's get started. So good morning, Super Saturday. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to play a little activity here. It's called source search. Source search. So I want you to grab a piece of paper, please. All right, find a piece of paper and divide it into 4 quadrants. So it can be the back of your envelope that you received from California Agriculture in the Classroom. It can be a piece of scrap paper, anything you like, all right? Anything you like. And I want you to divide it into 4 quadrants. One says farm, one says factory, one says store, and one says natural resource. Okay, I'm going to give you a second to work on that. The name of the game, as I said, is source search, S-O-U-R-C-E, source search. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'll stop sharing my screen here in a second. I'm going to show you some pictures of some common everyday items. You'll immediately recognize them. And what I want you to do is look at the picture and then determine what is the source of this item. And I want you to write it down in the correct quadrant. Is the source the farm, the factory, the store, or a natural resource? Okay, I'm not going to answer any questions about that. We're just going to dive right in. So if you have that, I'm going to maybe, let's see if I can stop sharing. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Do you all, hopefully you all have your paper, farm, factory, store, or natural resource. So I'm going to show you these pictures. Now, if we were face-to-face, or if you were working in your classroom, you would take your students outside into a gymnasium, in the hallway, and then you would line them up into a couple of relay teams, and then you would have some tubs. So I have my cards here, okay, I'm going to show you. You would line these tubs up. One says farm. This one says natural resources. This one says store. And this one is the factory. And I would line these up down the hallway, divide teams into 2 relays. I've got a couple different colored cards, have the students have a relay race, right? Challenge each other to see who can finish up their relay teams first by determining the source of these products. All right, someone give me an okay that you've got your paper ready. Someone put in the chat, do you have your papers ready? Farm, factory, store. Oh, Miss Alvis raised her hand. Excellent. Thank you. All right, we're ready to go. Okay, here we go. Now, I've got about 20 cards, and I'm going to do this fairly quickly. Because if a relay race, right, I'd blow a whistle or we'd run and we're going to holler and scream and encourage each other. And so I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. You look at the item. If it's a shoe, you write down the source of it on your piece of paper. All right, here we go. All right, first one. It's a hamburger. The source, Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Write down cheeseburger or hamburger on your list. Okay, I'm gonna go quickly. A car. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. A loaf of bread. And I do this with participants. I do this with all age levels, from little people to adults. And we have a great time. I've only had one black eye doing the relay race. Salt. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Chocolate. My favorite food. Well, next to donuts. A pair of jeans. Making you think fast here. Tomatoes. Tomato sauce, actually, tomato sauce. This is an all-purpose tool here. Looks kind of like a Leatherman. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Remember, the name of the game is source search. A basketball. Let's say it's a nice basketball. It's a leather basketball, okay? A basketball. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Toilet paper. Fruit. Just fruit in general. The source of this product. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Soda. Breakfast of champions, right? Pair of men's shoes. A blender. Okay, remember, source search is the name of the game. Hot dogs. Source search, for searching for the source. Farm, factory, store, or natural resource. Cookies. Mayonnaise. Shrimp. Cheese. And French fries. Source search, farm, factory, store, or natural resource. That's our last one. Okay, now I'm going to keep my camera on here so I can see the chat for a couple of minutes. So now let's take a look. Let's kind of debrief a little bit. I won't do every single one of these, but let's just kind of pull out a few of these, my favorites. Oops, I just dropped them all on the floor. Let's not do that. Okay, let's see. Let's do let's see. So if those of you want to play in the chat, where did you put the source of a cheeseburger? Farm, factory, store, or natural resource? Okay, someone said farm. We have some smart people there, right? Okay, so all these products are sourced. Everything on our cheeseburger is sourced. Oh, a possible 2 squares could be. Yes, Lena asked a very good question. Some of these we're going to look at that. Okay, we're going to look at that. Let's take a look at the car. Where did you put the car? Factory. Okay, a car comes from a factory. Now let's think about this. The name of the game is source search. Someone's got it there. Tammy says, how about a natural resource? So if we look at the items in this car, right? If we look at all the products that come here, like metal, right? So great. We've got some people saying metal, natural resource. We've got glass. We've got rubber. We've got some plastics. Okay, so we purchase it, or it's actually produced at a factory. We go to the car dealership, right? But the source of this product is natural resources. So if we were looking at our baskets here, we would take this car and we would say most of the items in here, right, are probably going to be a natural resource of some kind. So we'll plop it in there, right? Let's find a different one. Oh, here's a good one. Oh, so Jamie makes a good comment. Jamie said, I was looking at the things as a finished product. And that's exactly what happens, right? I didn't give you very many directions. I just gave you a bunch of cards and said, all right, search, tell me the source of the product. And so when you think of yourself as a consumer, you think, I sourced that at a store, or it's sourced at a factory. And that's exactly right, right? But if we're talking about the source of this product, so for example, let's do an easy one. All right, another easy one, bread. The source of this product, as a consumer, I go to the store, right? I go to the store, all right? And then someone says here, Norma says, yes, I keep reminding you to find the source. And so that's what I want you to remind your students of. What is the source? So if we're talking about bread, we're talking about a farm, right? A farmer grows and produces that wheat. And it's, of course, a big commodity process, right? A food chain process where it's processed and then we buy it at the store. So yes, very interesting. Okay, salt. Salt should have probably ended up in a natural resource, right? It's mined. Okay, it's a natural resource. Here's a good one. How about hot dogs? Where are you going to put a hot dog? Okay, people are saying farm. My students always laugh. Literally, hot dogs are one of my favorite foods. I love hot dogs. I know they're made up of beef byproducts and parts and I don't know, chicken lips. I don't know what's in there. Maybe I don't want to think about it. Pig farm. Yep, absolutely. So we have all these byproducts from farming, right? That goes into a hot dog. Let's see. Oh, here's another one. Here's another good one. Chocolate. Okay, so my students usually have a good discussion, or my participants have a good discussion about chocolate. So we're talking about sugar. We look at cacao, which is, someone said, well, isn't chocolate a natural, or isn't cacao a natural resource? Well, not really. Those trees are farmed most of the time, right? So yes, a cacao farm. And so we have a natural resource in some regions, the cacao, but then we have sugar, we have additives, we have cream, we have flavorings, lots of things. And so they're farmed, right? Most of these resources come from the farm. So we would go to the farm here and drop our chocolate into the farm. So right now we've got farm and natural resources going, right? Farm and natural resources. Let's look at a few others that might be. Oh, here we go. So here's an interesting one. Okay. Oh, Lena makes a good point. Packaging comes from natural resources. A lot of times it does, but it comes from natural resources. Well, okay. So if we talk about plastics, right? Exactly. Things like that. Let's look at toilet paper. Okay. So think about toilet paper. What's the source of toilet paper? So I see interesting things. I see cotton farms, I see natural resources, I see trees, I see farms. So the paper that's involved in cardboard, our paper products, right, our furniture, those kinds of things. A tree is a natural resource, but we just don't go out willy-nilly and cut down trees. You know, if I'm in Oregon, I see a lot of cutting, right? But those are farmed resources, okay? These are farmed resources. So even this product, right? Even this product of toilet paper is going to be it's going to be farmed in some way, right? They're farming a natural resource. So some people might say, well, that's another one of those that maybe it kind of floats both ways, right? It floats both ways. But these companies are not going into forests and clear cutting forests, natural forests. They're farming that and managing that. So I like to say that they're farmed and managed. So we have to make sure we think about that. So now that we've had that discussion, oh, here's an interesting one. Let me talk about this for a minute. This is kind of an interesting one. Oh, so Colleen, thank you, Colleen. Say most forests in California are farmed. Oh, Diana's tried bamboo toilet paper. Ooh, never tried that. Not fun, looks like. I hope I don't have to. I was in Thailand. Oh, they have a lot of teak there, maybe not bamboo, but yeah, that's interesting. That's a great cultural story to tell your students, a great cultural story. So here's one. This is shrimp. And so I even did some little looking in, you know, farm. So someone say it's shrimp, you know, we farm it and it's a natural resource. So this is a really interesting kind of conversation that you can have. And Suzanne, you're exactly right. Some shrimp are wild, most are farmed. It's interesting if you look at the global production, right? The global production, especially in the United States, those of us who eat shrimp, most of the shrimp that we eat is imported from from Asian countries, and those are farmed. Now, there's all kinds of impacts related to that. And we'll talk a little bit about impacts, about the political impacts, the social impacts, because these are farmed, sometimes not sustainably. And so what happens is sometimes areas are cut down, just like for beef production. If we were talking about that hamburger again, that I probably dropped on the floor here, the hamburger, or anything that's leather, right? Anything where we have leather or beef production, sometimes the production of that, the source of it, then has some interesting impacts in terms of the land and resources that are used, right? Air and water and land that are used to produce those. And so interesting. So I love your comments. It's a natural resource. If it's wild caught, we buy it in the store, it's usually farmed. And so those are great thoughts, very insightful. And those are the kinds of discussions you want to have with your students. So let me share my screen again, and I will kind of show you what it should look like here. Let's let me get back to this piece here. So if we go down, let's see, next. So this is our source search, right? We have all these products. There are about 40 products in the cards that you can get, and I'll show you how to get those. And so this is basically what your boxes should look like, right? These are what your boxes should look like. And so you will see all of those in either the farm or natural resources. And so great discussions to have with your students in terms of, what the source of these products and where they come from. And so what I want you to think about as you look at these, think about the importance of agriculture, right? All of these things come from agriculture. Now, at Utah Agriculture in the Classroom, we do a lot of talk about the 5 F's of agriculture. And yes, you could have my slides, Sonia, absolutely. I will share my slides with Mindy, and she will make those available to you. So thank you for asking that. I should have told you that at the beginning. Yes, thank you so much. And so we talk about the 5 F's of agriculture: farm, fabric, forestry, flowers, and food. I think California adds fuel in there. Some programs add fish as part of their, F words. You gotta be careful saying that in middle school, but F words of agriculture. And so, where do these come from? Do they come from, are they part of a farm, a food, a flower, fabric, or forestry? Okay, so we even sort these even in deeper context. And so we'll talk more about some of those impacts. Another thing to think about, as Mindy mentioned, are the careers that are involved in these, right? So who, the 5 F's, sure. In Utah, we use the 5 F's as farm, food, fabric, forestry, and flowers. And thank you. So California Ag in the Classroom uses food, fiber, forest, flowers, and fuel. So we add farm, we don't use fuel. Some programs use fish. It doesn't really matter, but it's just a way to help contextualize how we look at agriculture, because sometimes you say the word agriculture and people are like, I'm not involved in agriculture, right? I'm not involved in agriculture. And I think that's really interesting when we hear that. I'll stop showing you. So you make a really good point. Soda in the blender. Good question. Soda in the blender. Someone's got a question about soda in the blender. Let's talk about the blender. That blender, I probably dropped it on the floor here, is just kind of in the same boat as the car, right? Or as this knife. Okay, a lot of natural resources. So the blender, I would put in natural resources. We've got sand, to make glass. Here it is. We've got plastics. We've got metals, right? Soda. If we look at soda, if you look at how it breaks down, right? Soda, most of it's water. It's just water, right? So you've got soda, or if you look at the water part, it's a natural resource. If you look at the sugar that's in it, okay, if you look at the sugar that's in it, then it's farmed, okay? So I'm going to put in here the chat here. So Utah, someone's asking about that. We use farm, food, fabric, Typing forestry, if I can spell correctly. 1, 2, 4. There we go. Okay, so great question. So Mrs. Alves, thank you so much asking about soda and the blender. Absolutely, absolutely. And so you can look at sources. You can talk about the 5 F's of agriculture. I think Minnesota might use fuel. I know there's a program that uses fish, but no matter how you contextualize it, it's always important. And what I do a lot of times is I will take, let's see, I'll just draw this piece of paper here. So I do concept mapping with my students. You brought up some good questions. So I'll take, for example, I'll take some big poster paper and I'll put the word farm, and I'll do actually the 5 F's. Farm on one paper, forestry, fabric, flowers, and food. I'll put these 5 posters around the room. And I say, all right, I want you to brainstorm. Think about everything that comes to mind when you hear the word farm or when you hear the word food. And I have students make these concept maps. And so they're going to say, okay, farming, there are pigs and chickens and cows. And I said, well, what about soil? Oh, that is soil. That's right. We have to worry about water, right? And then if it's older students, I say, well, what about policies and regulations? Oh, yeah, the EPA, the FDA, the USDA, right? And so you start to get a concept brainstorming map of all of these different inputs, right? Inputs of these 5 F's of agriculture. And so again, as I look at that, then we look at these posters that my students make and say, okay, now what about careers? Oh yeah, I forgot. You have to have a soil scientist. You have to have a meteorologist. You have to have a tractor salesperson. You have to have a mechanic. And so it's a great way to brainstorm. So every workshop I ever present, almost every one, depends on what it is, but 99% of the time, I start my workshop out by playing source search because it's applicable for all grade levels, even adults, to help us think about the importance of agriculture. So again, I would set up 4 boxes. You can use, a lot of times when I travel, I use grocery bags. I use paper grocery bags and put these together and then print out these. And actually, I'll show you in a few minutes how to find these. These are all downloadable. You can find them on the National Agriculture in the Classroom curriculum matrix. And so I'll show you that in a minute. But all these cards are all downloadable for you to print out. And I laminate those on 2 different colors, 2 different sets for 2 different relay teams. And we work from there. So thank you for playing along. And your questions are fantastic. So keep those questions coming. So I'm going to share again and just talk about a couple more details about that. Okay, so here we are. So agriculture, what I want you to remember is that agriculture, if there's only 2 things that you walk away with today after all that you've done, hopefully, well, sure, you're going to learn a lot more than that. But 2 things. Remember that agriculture has an impact on our environment, right? Now, sometimes it's negative, sometimes it's positive, but there's no getting around that, right? Agriculture has an impact on our environment. And I think that's a very, we have to have those discussions. We have to have those discussions about how our food is produced and the impact it has. We'll talk about more of that in detail in a few minutes. And agriculture impacts our quality of life. There is no getting around that, right? Think about if you ate breakfast this morning, okay? If you ate breakfast this morning, that impacted your quality of life. If you got up this morning and you got out of a bed, right? You were able to sleep in a bed at night, that impacts your quality of life. If you went out in the garden this morning, perhaps, and pick some strawberries, okay? Think about those who may be negative or not negatively impacted, but maybe don't have the same advantages or privileges as you do. So think about someone who woke up this morning and is hungry. Think about someone who went to bed hungry last night. Think about someone who got up this morning and is in the same clothes they've worn for the past several days, right? So our food, our clothing, our shelter, all come from agriculture. And that's the mission of the National Agriculture in the Classroom program. And many of our states have adopted that mission. We want to make sure that we help students understand the importance of agriculture in our daily lives. And Mindy talked about that this morning as California's mission for agriculture in the classroom. We want to make sure that students understand every single day that agriculture has an impact on our environment, it has an impact on our quality of life, and that is huge. the way I talk to students about this is I stole this from AP Human Geography. Are there any AP Human Geography teachers out there? If you are, put it in the chat. There's some of my people. I like to work with it's called APHG, Advanced Placement Human Geography Teachers. I went to a conference several years ago as I was working with them. It was our national conference, and I stole this acronym from them. It's ESPN. So I use E. So it's the ESPN, not the sports network, but I'll show you what we're talking about here. So E, so economic impacts of agriculture. S, oops, yeah, you can see me maybe. Social impacts, maybe I'll stop sharing. You see me the little screen, you can probably see me in there, right? P, political impacts. And EN, environmental impacts. All right, ESP, lowercase en. So economic, social, political, and environmental. Okay, that is huge. That is huge. And so I want you to keep that in mind. And I take these little bubbles and I just tape them on my whiteboard or around the room somewhere. Economic, social, political, and environmental, ESPN impacts. Everything we do that's related to agriculture has those impacts, okay? We can't get away from that. And so we have to make sure that we're thinking about that. So every bite of food that you take, every product that you buy at the grocery store, the clothes that you purchase, the vehicle that you drive, right? It all has an impact, economic, social, political, and impact based on agriculture. I had the privilege of listening to USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, came to Utah State University's graduation this past week. And it was phenomenal to hear from him. I was like nerding out that Tom Vilsack, our Secretary of Agriculture, was on our campus. And so we got to hear him speak at commencement, and then again in a small group setting for the College of Agriculture, which I'm a part of. I'm a faculty member in the College of Agriculture and also Extension. And to hear him talk about what it is that USDA is looking at in terms of careers for the future. And it was so maybe empowering for me and affirming to know that everything he talked about in terms of the importance of agriculture and the future of agriculture and the state of agriculture today around the world is based on agricultural literacy. And that's exactly what you are doing as teachers who implement agricultural literacy into your classrooms, what I'm doing as a director of my state program, what Judy and her team are doing at California Agriculture in the Classroom, what National Agriculture in the Classroom is doing. And so, he talked about the careers that are needed. Some students said, so, we're college students, we're graduating, we're looking for jobs, or we're starting our program, our programs of study, what do we need? And he said, you have to look for the future and we have to base decisions on science. So I think that was very, very important. I say that all the time to my students. When we talk about agriculture, we have lots of choices, right? Lots of choices in terms of the clothes we buy, the houses that we purchase, which are all thanks to agriculture, and the food that we purchase and consume. And so we have choices. We don't all make the same choices. Some of us eat meat, some of us don't. Some of us are vegetarian, some of us are pescatarian. Some of us believe in climate change, some of us don't. Some of us say eat organic, it's healthier. Some of us say no, not true, but I eat organic anyway. Lots of different choices we can make, right? We have that autonomy. But I hope that you're basing your choices on science. And so that's the hope. I hope that we are, as agricultural literacy advocates and teachers in classrooms, that we are talking to our students about the science behind agriculture and how our food and clothing and shelter are produced and who produces that. And so keep that in mind, that those ESPN impacts are very, very important. All right, gotta go back and share my screen here again. So know that no matter what subject you're teaching, right? No matter what subject you're teaching, you can teach about agricultural literacy. So agriculture is involved in science and social studies, nutrition, careers, math, English language. I looked at the California Ag in the Classroom site. I'm on their site quite often, actually. I borrow and steal their resources, and I know their team very well. And so we share information and resources a lot. I saw performing and visual arts lessons on there. And so remember that no matter what subject you teach, you can integrate agriculture in some way, all grade levels. So here's a quick story. I taught an honors section of what I teach, a food matters class at the university. It's a university-based class. It's a breadth social science for the general education program at Utah State University. And I was asked to teach an honors section 3 semesters. It was an awesome opportunity to see some different demographic of students and academic levels of students. But anyway, I taught this class, and the students were great, very engaged, very high level achievers and learners. And at the end of the class, we were talking about how the semester went. Of course, they do some formal evaluations. But one of the students said to me, he goes, you know, I like this class, but I never really figured out how it related to me. And I was crushed. I was absolutely crushed because I couldn't. I thought, I have just failed, right? I have failed in trying to make sure that this student understands what it is that they were doing, right, in this class. And so I wasn't really sure how to address that. And so I just kind of reiterated the fact that, you know, every day we're involved in agriculture by, again, food, clothing, and shelter, okay? So Mindy, I see a couple of hands raised. I don't know if they have questions. They can put those questions in the chat, but maybe you want to send them a little message or something. I'll let you kind of decide how you want to do that. Maybe they did it mistakenly, but if you're raising your hand, you have a question or maybe a comment you can put in the chat or the Q&A, let Mindy know that, and she'll let us know. The chat might be the fastest way to do that. And we'll see what your question is or what your experience might be. So please share that. So, you know, again, I felt badly that I had not, somehow I missed the connection with that student, because every single day we're involved in agriculture. And I ask that question a lot of people that I work with. I say, you know, are you involved in agriculture? Sometimes that's how after I play Source Search, I say to students and to teachers and in workshops, are you involved in agriculture? And every once in a while I'll have someone say, no, I'm not involved in agriculture. I said, think about it. Think about that question again. Think about food, clothing, and shelter. Think about the 5 F's of agriculture. Think about Source Search. Are you involved in agriculture? And they're like, oh, wait a minute, I have a garden. Or, yeah, I wore clothes today. Or I cooked dinner last night, right? And so we're involved in agriculture every single day. And so every subject area, okay, every subject area, you can find how it connects. All right, so let's see. Let me stop sharing here. And let's see, Mindy, can you, let's see, I don't know if I can, maybe I can do it. I'm gonna see if I can launch this poll. Okay, I'm going to launch this poll. I've got a 3-question poll. And so I've never done this before. So I'm a learner along with you. I'm gonna launch this poll and see if, okay, so question number 1. Okay, I've got a poll for you. Question number 1. Let's take a 3-question poll. What is the current global population? Let's talk about state of the planet here. What is the current global population? Right? Current global population. I think it's important to talk about the state of the planet so that we get a broader understanding of what agriculture looks like in our world. Okay, looks like I've got people are still participating, so we'll look at this for a second. The current global population. If you would do something really cool with your students, you can turn on the world population clock and show that tick, 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 tick. It's amazing to watch. Just Google world population clock and watch that tick. Okay, it looks like we've got about most of the answers in. Those who are participating might have a few wander in. Right now, our current global population is 7.9 billion people. 7.9 billion people. It's just, to me, population is fascinating. There are lots of resources out there. I'll show you in a few minutes about population. But we're at about 7.9 billion people. Okay, so I'm going to end that poll. All right, there's our results. Now I wonder if I can, oops, no. Okay, now, I don't know, let's go to our next question. Okay, let's launch this question. What's the projected global population in 2050? Okay, so in 2050, what did I say we were? 7.9 billion right now. So in just a few more years, what will be our population in 2050? Okay, looks like most people have answered. Okay, the answer is 10 billion. 10 billion. Now, I've been working with agriculture in the classroom since 2005. Okay, since 2005. And back in the day, when I was working in this program, we had lots of resources that said feeding 9 billion in 2050. That was the title of everything, feeding 9 billion in 2050. Now, here we are. So from 2005, now we're at 2022, and now our resources say feeding 10 billion in 2050. Okay, feeding 10 billion in 2050. So that's kind of interesting, and I'm gonna write down a little question here. I'm gonna ask you just in a minute. Just came to mind. So keep that in mind that in the year 2022, we're going to have 10 billion. Now, some experts say it could inch a little higher. Some say maybe 9.78, maybe 10, 10.24. It's most people think about 10 billion will start to level off, right? We haven't seen 11 billion yet, thank goodness. But we're looking at 2050, okay, 10 billion people. All right, let's look at the last question. Okay, last question. And if you listened to Mindy this morning, you'll know the answer to this. What percentage of Americans work as farmers or ranchers? What percentage of Americans work as farmers or ranchers? Oh, you all paid attention. Look at that. Well, some of you did. Or you got in late. So what's the correct answer? What percentage of Americans work as farmers or ranchers? This is kind of I think it's a staggering statistic. Excellent. I love those. Okay, the answer is fewer than 2%. So percentage of Americans who work as farmers and ranchers, fewer than 2%. Okay, so let me end that poll. Okay, so if you think about that, so we've got 7.9 billion people in the world today. In 2050, we're looking at about 10 billion people, and yet fewer than 2% of Americans, okay, are farmers or ranchers. So here's a question for you. Maybe if you want to jump in the chat and answer that. Let's see if I can see my chat here. There it is. Okay. Do we have enough food to feed the world? Anybody like to jump in the chat? Do we have enough food to feed the world? Someone says no. Someone says yes. I should have asked that poll. That's what I should have asked. So we've got some yeses and nos. It looks like about 50-50 right now. So I love to ask that question of students and workshop participants. Do we have enough food to feed the world? Most research says that yes, we do. We have enough. Yeah, Lena, good point. Food is in the wrong places. So that's one of the problems, right? Problem of distribution. Absolutely, Carla. Absolutely. Problem of distribution. And so if we look at world hunger statistics, so I love to use World Food Program. Oh, don't get me started on waste, Carrie. That's a World Food Program and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. I use their resources all the time. And most experts will say that, yes, we have enough food in the world to feed people. But just as you're listing here in the chat, it's distribution, it's waste, it's location, right? Some people can't grow food in locations. Famine, right? So climate change or climate in general, right? So climate in general, part of the geography, disasters, political unrest. One of the saddest probably things is that if a government or an autocracy, a dictatorship want to keep people in line, they keep their people hungry. Look at North and South Korea. South Korea, no hunger issues, very, very little. issue of hunger. North Korea, huge issue. They starve their people to keep them in control. And so you see, there's a world hunger map. You can Google a world hunger map and find an interactive world hunger map that's just fascinating. So there are over 800 million people in the world, 800 million. I think the last I looked was like 810 or 811 million people in the world who are hungry. And there are lots of different ways we could define that and categorize that. But people who don't have enough caloric intake to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So 800 million people in the world, and yet here we are, we have enough food. And then the other question I always ask is, should the United States, should American farmers be feeding the world? If you've ever seen the Food and Farm Facts booklet, I just happen to have this, I keep it as a handy resource from American Farm Bureau Foundation, the Food and Farm Facts booklet. You know, one farmer feeds over 160 people around, one American farmer feeds over 160 million people, 160 people around the world. Okay, so family farmers and ranchers feed America, right? That's the headline right here. Family farmers and ranchers feed America. They also feed the world. Okay, so one U.S. farmer feeds about 100, almost 165, 170 people around the world. Should we be doing that? Right? That's a great topic to have discussion with your students. Should American farmers be feeding the world? We have hungry people here in the United States too. So it's important to talk to your students about local impacts of agriculture, in their own communities, statewide, nationally, and globally, right? Help them find a place, right? Help them find a place in the world in terms of that impact of agriculture, right? Impact on the environment and impact on their quality of life. And how does that compare with neighbors, friends, and people around the world? It's just a never-ending topic. And that's how we're all related, right? That one student who said to me, I don't really know how I fit in or how this class related to me. That's how it relates to you, right? Those are the kinds of things it relates to you. All right, now let me dive in here. I'm going to show you some resources and how you can find lots of different resources. So again, we're back here to agriculture fits into all these different areas of standards, right? And all these classes and content areas. And again, this is not even an inclusive list, right? There are more to be involved. So both California Agriculture in the Classroom and National Agriculture in the Classroom have just lots and lots of resources that I'll share with you. So for example, you can go to, and if you'd like to play on where you're sitting here this morning, I can't see you, but you're not gonna hurt my feelings if you're on a device and you can go to the website. You can go to the California Agriculture in the Classroom website and click on lessons, right? Click on their lesson plans. It's under teaching resources and then lesson plans, and you will see the California Agriculture in the Classroom resources that are there for you to use. Then you will also see the agricultural literacy curriculum matrix that's tied to the national AITC program. And so programs like California and programs like mine in Utah, we link on our sites to what we call the curriculum matrix. It's an incredible resource that you can search and find resources for your grade level and your classroom. So for example, I just took a screenshot of the curriculum matrix. This is kind of the homepage, and I clicked on a search, and I didn't put in a keyword. I just said, I'm not going to search any keyword. I'm just going to search all the results. There are 454 lessons that have been written by teachers, educators, and they have been vetted by professionals, and they are tied to educational standards. They're tied, so I tie mine on if you go to Utah Agriculture in the Classroom, those are tied to my standards. The lessons that you see on the California site are tied to the California standards. They're also tied to national standards. So they can tie to Common Core. They can be tied to national standards in geography and social studies and science. So you can search that curriculum matrix by keyword. So if I want to search bees, I could go to that site. I could type in bees, and I could see all the lessons on bees. I can search by grade level, and that's under this advanced search button. So search by grade level. If you're a third grade teacher, a ninth grade teacher, a 12th grade teacher, you can search by that grade level. You could also search by content. let's say I just want some science lessons, and I don't care what grade level they are, I can adapt them, right? When you see these lessons, you can adapt them, change them, add to them, subtract from them. Just give credit where credit is due, of course, but you can search by content. Now, I hope you're all doing this. I hope that California, or the National Agriculture in the Classroom program, sees an influx in the My Binder. You can click on a lesson, and when you click on a particular lesson, you can add it to your binder. Oh, I just see that someone shared the lesson plan for Esperanza Rising with our 5th grade literature teacher. Isn't that awesome? I'm so glad you did that, Laura. That's fantastic. So Laura says she shared a lesson plan for Esperanza Rising with a fellow teacher who's a 5th grade literature teacher. And that's what we want, right? That's what we want. We want to see teachers sharing these resources and helping make those connections. So back to this My Binder feature, when you click on a lesson, this is not live, of course, but you can click on this lesson. If you like that lesson, there's a little My Binder sign up right here. You can sign up, and this is a virtual storage. It's a cloud storage of all the lessons that you want to save. So you can, it's like a rabbit hole for Alice in Wonderland. It is a rabbit hole. So you can go down this rabbit hole and find these resources and add them to your binder so that you can save them for future reference. And so I would encourage you to do that. There's also, there's a link. So when you get this PowerPoint, or these slides here, you can access this YouTube video, and it shows you how to access the National Agricultural Literacy Curriculum Matrix and how to deep dive into there to find lessons. So I'm not going to show you that today, but you can take time to do that. It's an excellent video tutorial that was produced. So Kathy says, I'm in with this website. As you're in it, could you send the link? Oh, you got it. Okay, so someone sent it. Thank you very much for helping each other out. That's very helpful. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see what else I've got for you. Now, here's the awesome thing. You know, I'm assuming K-12 teachers out there, and I know it's very, very important. I was a classroom teacher also. As Mindy said, I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in technology education, and so I was a public school classroom teacher for several years, and I knew, and I know it's important for you too, to have lessons tied to your grade level. That's important. That's where your accountability is for you and your students. So when you're on the National Agriculture in the Classroom site, you can go, oh, so Kathy asked a question. Do you need to already have a My Binder login? No, that matrix is open to everybody. It's free and open. And then you can establish a My Binder if you would like to save your files. You do not have to do that. So that agricultural curriculum matrix is wide open, wide open. So when you're on the National Agriculture in the Classroom site, you can just Google, it's just agclassroom.org, actually, agclassroom.org takes you to this national site. And across the top, you'll see a menu that says Teacher Center. You can click on that Teacher Center, and one of the tiles, one of the options is Themes for Learning in Grades K-5, right? Themes for Learning in Grades K-5. This is another rabbit hole of lessons. School garden centers. We put them in themes. So national group put these lessons in themes. Pollination, hatching science. So hatching eggs in your classroom. Diversity focused literature. Oh, I hope you'll share that with that 5th grade literature teacher. These are recommendations for literature links based on diversity, and it's all based on agriculture. The source. So these are all lessons based on the source of our food, clothing, and shelter, and then searching for a keyword. So you can dive down into those. So for example, here's the hatching science center. It tells you how to source fertile eggs, how to set up an incubator, how to brood chicks, and all the lessons tied to grade levels that go along with hatching chicks in your classroom. I'm just going to kind of go, I'm watching my time here. I'm going to kind of go through these. The School Garden Center, this is one that I helped create. It again has these curriculum connections, so you can click on it and you'll have just a plethora of lessons tied to core. So how it ties to art and science and social studies and environmental science, how to maintain your garden. It also has links to funding. So garden grants, you know, how do I get funding to help fund my program, my garden? And so you can take a look at that and look at those resources. Okay, that's very, very important. So now let's look a little bit at secondary. Oh no, yeah, so secondary. So when you go to National Agriculture in the Classroom, you'll see their main page. Across the menu bar is the Teacher Center there. You can click on the Teacher Center, and one of the options is course topics for grades 7 through 12. So if you're teaching any of these curriculum subjects, content areas, right? You've got science, biology, environmental science, American history, so a social studies link. This is geography. This is where I have my AP Human Geography lessons that I helped write for a national grant I worked on, world geography, and then family consumer science. And so you can look at that. Laura, you made a good point here. Funding and grants, you're right, is always a struggle. And so make sure you take a look at that funding. And also, I know for a fact, I hope that you were, well, I'll talk about signing up to follow California Agriculture in the Classroom here in a minute, but that's really important to follow your state program, because I know that they have funding, just like I have funding in my state. So we'll talk about how to kind of keep up with that in a few minutes here. All right, so this is just another rabbit hole again of how to find all of these lessons. So AgWare, so people complain about, yeah, exactly, using water to grow our food. You know, that's a very good point. I think it's easy for us to vilify farmers. I find it interesting though. I find it interesting that people have negative things to say about farmers. I'll never forget when I was teaching my higher ed class, I had a student raise his hand one day and said, you know what, I'm so sick and tired of farmers complaining about money, because all they want to do, they're just in it for the money. They make money. And I'm like, why do you think I'm standing here teaching this class in front of you right now? I make money for my living, right? So I find it interesting. We have to have a positive conversation about agriculture and our producers, but also include all those impacts. We do have negative impacts. That's a given. We have to look at those impacts and how they impact us and what farmers are doing to mitigate those negative impacts. I'll probably get off on a tangent here, but I'll come back to that in a minute. So secondary education, if you were dive down into some of those resources, they look at topics on a level, you know, for those higher secondary grade levels. So climate change, we've got some excellent lessons on climate change, and all based on science, right? All based on science. Genetics, engineering design, the climate exchange, that's a great social studies lesson. Growing a Nation is it's a multimedia program, curriculum resource that's on that curriculum matrix. It's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, with an agricultural history timeline and tons of first-person primary resources. Someone says, has that student ever worked on a farm and seen for themselves how crazy hard farmers work? You know, that's a good point. And when I talk to farmers, I take teachers on tours around our state. We run a summer agriculture institute. And I always ask our producers, what do you want teachers, right? So you classroom teachers, what can you do for farmers and ranchers as producers? And hands down, the answer is always help students be responsible workers, right? Help them be responsible workers. Help them understand the hard work that goes into having a job, any job, right? Showing up to work on time, taking your earbuds off, having a conversation face to face. And so, yes, farmers and ranchers work crazy hard, and it's really important for our students to see that. So by these lessons that we have available on this curriculum matrix and be able to search all of this, you'll be able to see the importance of those people who produce our food. And I read a book just recently. If you want a great book to read as an adult, it's called No One Eats Alone. It probably is on my shelf over here somewhere. I should have pulled it off. It's called No One Eats Alone. And it's about our foodway. The author talks about foodways and foodscapes. And he asked a question at the very beginning of the book. It says, have you ever sat down next to the person as you're eating your bowl of strawberries, which I thought was a great California reference. As you're sitting here eating your bowl of California strawberries, have you ever sat down next to the person who produced that strawberry for you? And so that's what we wanted our students to think about, right? Think about the face behind their food, if nothing else, the face behind their food. All right, I'm watching my time here. I'm going to go through a few more slides. You can also search careers. You can go to that agricultural literacy curriculum matrix, and just by searching the word careers, there are 39 lessons tied to grade level, tied to core standards, based on careers. And so you can go dig down in through the grade levels that are most applicable to you. I don't have time to show this Prezi, but it's on the slide. And so you can look at this at your leisure when Mindy sends these slides out. It's on agricultural careers. It gets us thinking about all the different careers in agriculture. And I think a lot of times we forget that it's not just a person on a tractor or a person planting a seed or a person who has their hands in the soil. That are so much more. And so make sure you take a look at this agricultural careers Prezi, and then take a look at those lessons on careers and find the ones that are applicable to you. So make sure that you're following California Agriculture in the Classroom and National Agriculture in the Classroom on your social media. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. Just phenomenal lessons and resources available for you. And so make sure that you go on there and follow them. That's where you're going to find, I think, a lot of information about grants and workshops and those kinds of things that are available in your own state. So I've talked a lot. I feel like I've given you a fire hose of information. Oh, one of my first graders melted my heart. She told me that when she grows up, she wants to be a garden teacher like Miss Laura. Oh, there you go. That means you've made an impact, Miss Laura. That means you are changing that student's perspective every single day. Those aha moments that students have when they're in the garden, when they're learning that their jeans that they're wearing come from a cotton boll, and you show them a cotton boll or put a cotton boll in their hand. Those are the moments that they're never going to forget. When they hatch a chick in your classroom, right? Those are moments that they will not forget. They will not forget. So, well, thank you very much. I've talked a long time. You've been a fantastic audience. Thank you for all of your feedback. Thank you, Diane. That's a very kind word there. Oh, garden boxes are coming on. That's awesome. Remember, we have the National Agriculture in the Classroom Conference every year, National AITC, and maybe Mindy can tell you more about that at some other point in time, but you can attend the National Agriculture Classroom Conference this year in Saratoga Springs. You also have fantastic California conferences. I've been there. I know about them. They are fantastic. I love to come to California and eat with you people. It's awesome. So I hope that you will take some time afterwards to go through these lessons, but make sure you keep in touch with Judy and Mindy and that team. They are very integral in making sure that you have the correct resources in your hands, but there is a lot out there for you to use and adapt to your classroom. So have a fantastic day. I think we're going to have finally a nice day here in Utah. I just got bees last night. I'm so excited. I went down to a farm in near Salt Lake City with my extension colleague, and I picked up 2 bee colonies last night. I'm a brand new beekeeper. I'm excited. They were out this morning just learning their new surroundings. So I'm excited to go home this morning when the sun is shining and check on my bees. So thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm going to have a great time with my son-in-law's birthday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to be traveling, but I'm going to keep my phone on and sneak in on Zoom to see what you're doing. So if you ever need anything from us, let me know at Utah Agriculture in the Classroom, but keep in touch with Mindy and Judy and her team.
Oh my gosh.
Mindy.
Denise, thank you so much. I don't even know where to start. I have a list of questions, but first, I just wanted to point out that I know I saw some comments in the chat about funding and how hard teachers are buying supplies for themselves. I thought this is a great plug for some of the grant programs that we have at Ag in the Classroom. So make sure our Literacy for Life grants, we provide $500 grants to enhance agricultural literacy in your classroom. The deadline for those are October 1st annually. So we award 25 teachers with up to $500. So keep those in mind as you plan your curriculum, and we would encourage all of you to apply. And then I know that Jamie Beck is on, but we also select one of the 25 recipients to be our Outstanding Educator of the Year, and that educator gets an additional $1,000. And so Jamie, who's on right now, and I saw her in the chat, is our Outstanding Educator for this year. And so she's doing some great things in her classroom, and her grant focused on buying books to include agriculture through reading and literature. So we are, there's always opportunities like that, but thank you so much for joining us, Denise. There was so much information. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now I am pleased to welcome our curriculum consultant, Mandy Bottoms, and she is going to explore ports and how agricultural commodities are shipped throughout the world. And so for this activity, you will need your Ag Bite booklet. It's number 18. in the set. And then also for those of you that received a packet in the mail, you have a Ziploc bag titled Ag Transportation Ag Bite, and it has graph paper and tinfoil. And so you will need those resources as well. And so with that, I'm going to slide over to Mandy, who is with us today.
Hello. That's kind of a fun way to transition. Hi, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here and sharing a little bit about some of the resources that we have developed at Ag in the Classroom. I have been working with Ag in the Classroom since 2008, so I have been really lucky to be part of a lot of the different resources that have been developed here. And Denise is right when she says there are a lot, and there's some really great ones, and there's some hidden gems in there too. So make sure you spend some time, maybe after the conference while you eat lunch or something, checking out some of the different resources that are on the website. So today I'm going to be sharing the Ag Transportation Ag Bite, and hopefully you all had time to find it. It's number 18 in the booklet that has the Ag Bites. I'm going to show you the front of it just so you can see what it looks like there. Great, and then I'm going to share my presentation as well. Okay. Great. Okay, you should be able to see it now. So I think this Ag Bite is so timely. We've had it for a while, but it's super timely right now because of all the shipping disruptions we're experiencing in agriculture. Well, experiencing everywhere, but it's especially hitting hard in agriculture. And so it's a great way to tie in current events with whatever you're teaching in your classroom. And even though it says it's for grades 5 through 8, I think that it could easily be used in a variety of grade levels and settings for sure. So quick background on what, I'm trying to figure out how I advance this slide. Got it. Okay. Quick background on how this Ag Bite came into development. It was sponsored by the Port of Oakland. And one of the reasons why the Port of Oakland cares about people being educated about the port and agriculture is because they are one of the most important gateways in the whole nation for exporting goods. And because of its location in Northern California, it exports a lot of farm goods. Everything that you see growing in Northern California that's destined for an international market is likely leaving through the Port of Oakland. So that's a lot of product. Traditionally, the half of the port's loaded containers that go out from the port or exports have been make up of half of that. But this year it's just about 45%, which doesn't seem like a huge difference. It's only a 5% difference. But when you think about the volume and the number of shipping containers that are going out, 18,000 shipping containers on just one ship, you can get an idea of the scale and how much that impacts the ports and our supply here in the US and internationally as well. I'm actually married to a farmer, so I can attest when Denise was saying how hard they work. My husband farms almonds, and almonds have been really hit by the container issues. And I was just reading an article that said 1.1 billion pounds of almonds are still sitting in warehouses waiting to be shipped out when they should have been shipped out already. And we're only a few months away to the next almond harvest. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts California agriculture as we go forward. Okay, you should be seeing a screen. I wanted to show everyone how to find Ag Bites because there's so many great resources online. It's sometimes hard to find them. So if you go to the Ag in the Classroom website, learnaboutag.org, and you click on teaching resources, there will be a drop-down menu, and you go down to the one that says Ag Bites. And if you click on that, it will take you to this database of 20 different Ag Bites, and you can click on each of those. Some of them have extra resources like videos and additional articles, additional activities. So there's really a lot there. And they're meant to be just bite-sized activities, but a lot of them are set up for further use and expansion. So be sure to check those out. Okay, this is the one that we're going to be looking at today, and hopefully you have that there with you. And I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the challenge. So the challenge for this Ag Bite is for students to actually create a shipping container. It tells you a little bit about shipping containers, how many shipping containers go on each cargo ship, which I already shared. And then also the common size of those containers are 8 feet by 8 feet by 40 feet long. And so In this activity, the challenge is for students to use their math skills to create a net on graph paper and to actually create a scale so that they can build a shipping container that is to ratio with an actual shipping container. So I think there's some important discussion points that you can talk about with your students before you even really get into the challenge. And that is talking about what geometric shape is a shipping container, which I think most of us know, rectangular prism. But here's a question for you, and you can write your answer in the chat, is why do you think that is the geometric shape of choice? Let's see what people have to say. Easier to stack, most efficient, it's strength. Oh, all very good answers. Love that they're different and very true. It's on trucks. Okay, that's a great connection. So many of the shipping containers that are going out can be brought into a port and directly loaded onto a chassis that is attached to a truck and be pulled to its next destination. So that's a huge benefit. If it was, say, a triangular prism, that might not be as easy to transport once it gets to the port of choice. You can fit a lot of them together. Easy to transport on a lot of different ways. Yeah, trains, good point too. They can also be loaded directly on, usually they use a crane to plop it right on top of a train car as well. And they can be stacked. They're pretty neat to see stacked up. I included a few photos in here, but it's remarkable how many they can stack and how high they can stack. Great, excellent answers. Thank you, everybody. So the next question that you might want to talk with your students about is, what does scale mean? You know, there's a lot of different scales in our lives. There's the things that you stand on, the things that are on reptiles. So in this example, what is scale and how do we see scale used in real life? And what they might be able to have some context for is when they're using maps. And so a lot of times, you know, you can't view the whole world in its actual size. So we shrink it down and try to make it as accurate as possible by using scales. And so in the lesson, it actually encourages you to pull up a map and to look at the scale that's used and maybe even use a ruler to check to see if that's the accurate scale. For time, we're not going to do all of that part of the activity, but it's a great way to connect to something that they use in real life. And then the final question is, what does scale mean when in math? What's the point of using it in math? And in math, it's kind of what you could tell them is it's a ratio to compare a model to a life-size object. So even though you can't build something life-size as big as a shipping container, you can create something that can give you an idea of what it really looks like by using a scale to develop in something that represents a real life object. So those are some different ways that you can use scale. Okay, so here's the challenge that we are actually going to do together. So we're gonna have a little bit of like quiet time so we can all work on it. But the challenge is knowing the dimensions of a real life shipping container is 8 feet by 8 feet by 40. How can we create a model of that is to scale, that is accurate? And so you have a piece of paper. I put a net of a rectangular prism to kind of help us all out here. If you don't teach math, you might be like, oh man, I haven't taught that in a while. So there's an example of a rectangular prism, and we're going to work to create that on our graph paper and to make something that is to scale. So what I'm going to take a minute to do too is to kind of figure out how many squares do I have to work with? And then once you figure that out, you might be able to come up with your scale. Now, if you're really quick and you're already like, I already know what my scale is going to be, 1 square equals however many feet, you can go ahead and type that in your chat and help the rest of us out. But we're going to go ahead and take a minute and work on creating that on our graph paper now. And I'm checking to see what other people are doing because I don't know what I'm doing. We're all learning together, which is kind of fun. Okay, I have some insight for you. If you do half of a square is 1 foot, I think that should give you a pretty good ratio. Is that what everybody else is trying? Everybody's busy drawing, I think. Okay, that's good. Keep going. Don't let me stop you. And I can show you what I have so far. Okay, so far I have kind of the base and 2 of the sides, and now I'm going to add the remainder of the long sides on top and on the bottom of what I have so far. So whatever you have, keep working on it, and then we will meet back together in just a moment. Okay, let's see who has their nets done. I'm going to share what I have so far. Now I am happy. Oh, good. Is that a math teacher on with us? Okay, here's a net of a rectangular prism. And once you have that drawn out, we are going to be creating the shipping container. So the next step is to cut out your net, and we're going to put it together to actually make a cargo, a shipping container. The only thing that you need to remember is what good would a shipping container be if we didn't put something in it? So please leave one side open so that you can still put something inside, because the next part of our challenge is actually using them to see if we can ship some agricultural commodities. So take a minute now and cut out your net, and then we'll be putting it together. So you'll need scissors and tape for this one. And remember, the shipping container doesn't need to be watertight, so you don't have to go too crazy with the tape. But we're going to be building a cargo ship out of tinfoil next, and that's the thing that needs to be watertight. So thankfully, tinfoil kind of already has that built in. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You're allowed to have a few gaps around the edges of your shipping container. Okay, so I have cut out my net, and now I'm going to fold it on my marked lines to create the rectangular prism of a shipping container. There's been a lot of interesting ideas that have come out of the shipping disruptions for agriculture. And one of the, I don't know if anybody else saw, but one of the ideas was USDA announced that they were going to create I think they called it a pop-up yard at the Oakland port. And basically it would be a temporary space where they would be able to hold on to some of the shipping containers before they go back. One of the reasons that this was kind of exacerbated was because China was requesting so many that they were paying a premium to have those come back empty. So instead of waiting for the agricultural products to come to the port to put them inside, they would get shipped straight back completely empty, which is not very efficient, but it solves their problem of always having a shipping container to send it in. So USDA had this idea of creating a pop-up yard so that they could hold on to them for a few hours and hopefully give farmers and growers and distributors the time to get their product all the way to the port from wherever they're storing their product originally. Some other growers had a good idea, and they started storing their product much closer to Oakland. So they rented out warehouses and moved some of their product there. So when they were in a hurry, they could get it to the ports really quickly. But as you can tell, or I don't know if you've all been following it, but it hasn't made too much of a difference. There's just so much in storage, and it's hard to make up now for all that lost time. Okay, I'm just about done taping mine. I wish I could see all of you and see what you're doing. And when you're doing this in the classroom, obviously graph paper is not like the sturdiest paper to actually make a cargo, a shipping container out of. And one of the reasons why the rectangular prism works so well is because it's really sturdy. So another idea is once they create a net on the graph paper is that they could trace it onto a harder, like a cardstock, and then create their shipping container out of the cardstock, which will make it a little bit more durable when you put the product inside. Is anybody else surprised at how long their shipping container is? I think it's pretty impressive. So this is to scale. It seems a lot longer when you're holding it in your hand than when you see it on a truck. Okay. I think everybody's just really busy, which is great. Oh, I've not yet heard the term net in this context. Oh, sure. Net, now I'm not a math teacher, but I do like math. So net is, I should look it up to be sure, is if you were to take a 3D object and you were to open it up and lay it flat, it's the shape you would have. So you can't do it with things like a sphere, but most of the other 3D shapes like a cylinder or a cone, you can actually create on a piece of graph paper what that would look like if you were to kind of cut it open and to lay it flat. So that's what the term net is for this context. Great question. Okay, here's the fun part. Let me check the time. Okay, great. Perfect. Is we are going to, here, let me get back to the presentation so you can see that as well. We are going to actually try these out and see what they look like once they're going. Oh, there it is. Okay. Here comes the presentation again. I wish I was as smooth as Denise, but I use Zoom like, I have 3 very small kids, so I don't use Zoom very often. They don't use computers yet, which I'm thankful for. Okay, here's the next part. The next part is the competition. So the competition is to test out your scale model and build an aluminum ship and see if it can carry your cargo to wherever you want it to go. So in your materials, you should have also had a piece of tinfoil. And at this point, you are going to build any variation of a floating device. It might not look exactly like a cargo ship, but something that you think will stay afloat and that your shipping container will fit on. If you're doing this in your classroom, another idea could be giving the children or students a number of recyclable containers that they can also use to cover in the tinfoil. I've done this with kindergartners and it's really fun. So they can take, a yogurt container or a lid to something and use it and see if it also works as a ship. So they can be pretty creative. So go ahead and take a moment and start forming your tinfoil into the shape of a boat that you hope will float. And we're going to try floating them in just a minute. If you don't have a body of water nearby, you can also practice floating your boat in a moment. So don't worry too much if you don't have. I brought a like a bucket with me, so not everybody has a bucket of water. But you guys are home, so you might have a bathtub or a sink or something that you can float your boat in. So once you have, I'm kind of rolling the sides of mine. I don't know, other people might have good strategies. I'm looking to see if anybody else is like, here's the key to making a good boat. Because I know you want to have the sides strong enough where the water is not going to get, because the quickest way to capsize boat is letting water in the sides, from personal experience of a tinfoil boat. Okay, so once you have something that looks a little bit like a boat, you are going to get your body of water. We might try using that so you can get a bird's eye view of what this might look like. Okay, there's my body of water. Okay, and you don't have to have an agricultural product, but I happen to have someone here in the office brought in some almonds for a snack, which I thought was a good idea. And this is where you can kind of make it a competition with your students is you take your shipping container, and then you're gonna put the almonds inside. We'll see if any fall out the end. Might not be as strong as I thought it was. And so I put in 4 almonds, and a fun competition that students really get into is once you start putting some in, they can say, well, I think I can do 10 almonds, and they can put theirs in, or grapes or craisins or whatever you have that that's an agricultural product. Denise did a good job of sharing kind of the variety of ag products. So, it could be flowers, it could be food, it could be little pieces of fabric going to the textile industry. So whatever it is. And then you're going to take your little boat. Oh no, I can already tell mine's gonna stink, you guys. Okay, so you're gonna take it and put it on. I'm trying to evenly distribute my weight of my almonds. Okay. It's floating right now. So That might be a key point, is not to have all the almonds like on one side of the shipping container. So you want to have your weight evenly distributed so your boat doesn't capsize in the water. So mine's successful so far. So if I was doing this with a class, I might take mine out and add a few more almonds and see if it floats. Maybe we have a timer and we time to see who's can float the longest. There's a number of different ways that you can extend this activity to get the students really involved. Kids love doing competitions like this. So I think that, you know, the testing and the rebuilding and the adding more weight could be a great extension as they try it out. I'm curious, is anybody else trying out their cargo shipping container? Mine's still going strong. It's a little bit, I would hate to put, I'd hate to put how many, 18,000 in there. I don't know if it, oh good, yes, and your bathroom sink, good. Yeah, I don't know if I could fit 18,000 on my boat, but at least I got one. My ship is not the answer to our shipping disruption problems, because it would take a long time to get all the almonds out of California if we were doing it at the rate that I'm doing it. Okay, so then there's a couple additional things I want to draw your attention to, and I think we can turn this camera off when you have a chance, Mindy. And what I love about the Ag Bites is at the bottom of the Ag Bites, in the yellow squares, there's different extension activities. So once your classroom has tried this, they had a great time with it, and now they're ready to try something else. All right, we've got some still floating. Wow, that's fun. Okay. Put in a dime. Yeah, that's a nice way to, I think it's called ballast. I don't know. Having weight at the bottom of a boat so it doesn't tip over. Oh, that's a good question. For most of the ones that are going to a nearby port, like Port of Oakland, most of them are going on with semi trucks. So they'll either be going, sometimes it depends on the processor. Like, so for a product like almonds, some of them process them and put them in these huge, gosh, I wish I could remember how many pounds they are. I think it's like a 200-pound bag. I mean, they're huge. It's not like a human could carry them. They're moved by machine. And then they load those up in a semi truck. Other ones that are more bulk can be sent in, this is testing my truck knowledge, the hopper trucks. And then some products, obviously, like that need refrigeration could be sent. Oh, that won't be going to the port though. So I think those are the main ways that they get sent to the port. Usually when they're staying in the US, they can go on a train and go across the country to wherever they're ending up. All right, somebody's exporting Lego pieces. That's a great idea. Fun. You guys are doing a great job. Okay, I want to tell you just a few of the classroom activities before my my time is up, which is just a couple minutes. The science activity is having students consider, like what I was just saying, if I sent a refrigerated item to the port, by the time it reaches its destination, which it could be an Asian country, could be India, something like yogurt probably isn't going to be that great anymore. And so they can think about, say, I want to ship apple. How can I send apple over there? Because obviously if I send it, apples aren't super perishable, but they could say, maybe we dry the apple first, maybe we do applesauce. So they consider all the different forms of produce and how that would work to send it over on a ship. For technology, students can, this is such a fun connection. I think one of our most underappreciated resources we have at Ag in the Classroom is a unit called Simple and Complex Machines in Agriculture. It is such a great unit and so fun for a variety of different grade levels. I've done it with middle school students, and I did it just 2 weeks ago with my daughter's kindergarten class. And one of the activities in there is about creating a pulley system. And so you could say, you know, how do they get these containers onto the ship? It's a little bit challenging, actually. They have to use a pulley to be able to lift a crane to lift it up using a pulley. So now we are going to create our own crane using materials that we brought. Maybe you have some spools of thread. Maybe you have, I'm thinking like a tape dispenser. So different things that have that same mechanism where they can create a pulley to move their containers onto the ship. Which the balancing thing, I mean, it was pretty hard to balance with just setting it with your hands, so they can see how challenging that is. The question is, do different products need different weight constraints? I'm not 100% sure, but what I can tell you is that one of the strategies that they had for helping relieve some of the shipping issues was the shipping, the weight constraints was for the road. So it was fine once it got on the ship, but transporting something in a shipping container on the road, they have pretty strict weight restrictions for that. I mean, you guys see the weigh stations all over California. So they actually increased the weight limit. So they allowed growers to put more produce in so that it would help just a little bit at a time to relieve that. So that was one of the strategies. Whether it was super effective, I'm not sure. But I think the main restriction or main constraint is for those products when they're on the road because of the damage they can do to our highways. Okay, next one, and I'm going to come back with something similar to this in a few minutes, but for engineering, they can design a container that can transport something that's pretty sensitive, like an egg, a pear, avocado, and then they can test their container by dropping it from different heights. And some of those things will take some time to see the damage, but it could be a fun activity. And then for math, they could calculate how far are these products going. So once they leave the port of Oakland, how far is it to go to India and how far is it to go to Asia and how long does it take them? So there's some different equations you can use and ratios that they can figure out to determine, wow, it takes, I never realized it takes 3 weeks for our products to get all the way over to Southeast Asia or wherever they're headed. Could be a fun add-on. So with that, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take those now. You can put them in the chat box. Yeah, it's several weeks. So I'm not 100% sure it's 3, but I do know it's several weeks to get them across the ocean. How do they keep produce fresh? I'm not 100% sure on the produce situation. I think they fly a lot of the produce. I'm looking around, I see some heads nodding. So I think a lot of those get exported by air. Certainly highly perishable things like strawberries and I don't know what else, cherries and things like that. Okay, I think that's it. I hope you all enjoy doing this with your class and you're able to tie it into all of the standards that you're already teaching. I think it folds in nicely to the math standards that we have to teach anyway. So might as well do it with some really relevant activities, things that are happening right now and that connect them back to agriculture. All right, I'll give it back to Mindy.
Thanks, Mandy. That was your shipping container still floating. So we're going to take a short 5-minute break and meet you back here for our virtual make and take session.